In 2024, terrifying events unfolded that will make you question what's lurking just out of sight. These are the 5 scariest true stories from this year, each one darker than the last. From unexplainable encounters to chilling discoveries, these stories will stay with you long after the screen goes dark. But before we dive in, make sure to hit that subscribe button, and if you have a story that haunts you, share it in the comments below. We'd love to hear your thoughts and your terrifying experiences. Are you ready? Let's begin. This story begins on a camping trip, when everything seemed normal. 5 friends, a campfire, and the wilderness. The stars above, the rustling of the trees, and the crackling of the fire were the only sounds. It felt peaceful, just like any other night. But then, something strange happened. A sound came from the woods. At first, we thought it was the wind, swirling through the leaves. But then it grew louder, clearer. Like footsteps. We froze. It couldn't be an animal. The sound came again, closer this time, unmistakably human. Our eyes locked, but no one said a word. Then, a shadow darted between the trees. We stood still, our hearts hammering in our chests. The sound grew louder, more distinct. Something or someone was moving toward us. Then, it appeared. A figure, barely visible, standing between the trees. It didn't move like a person. It didn't look human. We could barely breathe, our bodies frozen in terror. Time stood still. In the blink of an eye, it was gone. Vanished into the darkness, leaving nothing but a cold, unsettling silence. We called the police, but by the time they arrived, there was nothing. No footprints, no signs of anyone. The campfire was still burning, and the woods were quiet. What was that thing? Was it real? Or something else? Something we still can't explain? We left that night, but the feeling of being watched never left us. To this day, we still don't know who or what we saw. But one thing's for sure, the woods were never the same after that night. It was a quiet, desolate road. No cars for miles, just endless darkness. Sarah was on her way back home after visiting some friends. The road stretched on, the tires of her car the only sound breaking the stillness. It was too quiet, too calm. As she drove deeper into the countryside, something caught her eye. A figure at the edge of the road. At first, it seemed like someone waiting for a ride. But as Sarah slowed down to offer help, a cold shiver ran down her spine. She saw it clearly now, and her blood ran cold. The figure's face, it wasn't right. Too pale, almost unnatural. Its eyes, dark, hollow, stared right at Sarah, sending a wave of dread through her. Something invisible held her in place. She couldn't move. Her fingers trembled on the steering wheel. She slowly rolled down the window to ask if they needed help, but before she could even speak, the figure lunged forward, too fast. Far too fast for a person. Sarah slammed the gas pedal, speeding away in terror, but as she glanced into the rearview mirror, the figure was still there, standing in the middle of the road, watching her, unmoving. The next day, Sarah returned to the same stretch of road with a friend, hoping to understand what had happened. But when they stopped, they found nothing. No footprints, no trace of the figure. Just the empty road, and the sense of dread that would never leave her. The local police couldn't find any evidence either. But here's the strangest part. A week before Sarah's encounter, another driver reported seeing a similar figure at exactly the same spot, but it was never found. Was it a ghost, a warning, or something else entirely? Something darker, waiting for its next victim. It was a normal weekend for Jake, a mountain biker looking for the perfect trail. He had driven out to the quiet hills, miles from the nearest town. As the sun began to dip below the horizon, he took his bike to the edge of a cliffside trail, a path known for its breathtaking views and perilous drops. The air was cool, The only sound, the wind brushing past. Him. But the further he ventured, the more dangerous the trail became. Sharp turns, steep descents, and loose gravel. Jake loved the thrill, until it all went wrong. It happened in an instant. One wrong turn, a slip, and the bike shot out from under him. The world spun as he tumbled down the side of the mountain. Rocks hit his body like bullets. His bike, twisting behind him, disappearing into the darkness. The pain was overwhelming, but what terrified him the most was the fall itself. He had no idea how far he'd gone or where he was. His heart raced as he clung to a rock outcropping, his feet barely holding onto the edge. For a moment, everything went silent. He could feel the weight of his body pulling him toward the abyss below. Every breath was a struggle. His vision blurred, his body screaming. But then, something inside him snapped. The will to survive. Slowly, painfully, he pulled himself up, inch by inch. His hands raw from the rocks, his body trembling. But he couldn't give in. Not now. Not like this. When he made it back to his car, he collapsed. His body battered, his mind spinning. He could barely comprehend what had just happened. But one thing was clear. He had escaped the edge of death, and it had changed him forever. Jake never rode on that trail again. In fact, he never biked. Alone after that day. His near-death experience taught him that life is fragile, and every decision, every moment, can be the difference between life and death. These true stories, they're not just tales of the unknown. They are reminders that sometimes the darkness is closer than we think. What if the shadows that lurk at the edges of our world are not just figments of our imagination, but something more, something real, something waiting? Could it happen to you? Could you be the next person caught in the web of the unexplained? After all, some mysteries are better left unsolved. If you want more spine-chilling true stories, or if you've ever experienced something unexplainable yourself, leave a comment, like, and subscribe. We're always watching and waiting for the next mystery to unfold.